We are live on Facebook. Hello, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas, and it's the Sacred Sunday Show. And today I've got a really wonderful guest. She's brand new to my world. I just met her recently, and she was on our Saturday Night Alive show yesterday. And I just was so touched with who she is and her joyfulness and her playfulness and her spirit that I said, I want you to be on my Sacred Sunday show this morning. And she thankfully agreed, which is remarkable because she has been doing a lot. Of course, I'm talking about Becky, and she is the creator of joyfuel.org. But she's also been coordinating this incredible series of events all weekend long that's leading up to the International Day of Peace tomorrow. In fact, just over her right shoulder, you can see a peace pole. Hi, Becky.
Hello. Good moment, everybody. Because I know we have people probably watching all over the world.
All
So
over the
grateful to
world.
be here.
And it's really one thing I want to acknowledge is that, and I'll come back on for a second. The majority of people who watch this show actually watch the replay. Maybe because it's like Sunday morning and people are sleeping in or off to church or doing other things. So I do appreciate anybody watching live. Thank you. And
Let's
share it
have
out.
church right here. Let's have church right here.
Well, that's the idea. That is absolutely the idea. It is our own form of non-denominational church. Um, and and recognize that anybody that, whatever our spirituality is, let's support that.
Mm.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to a religion.
Mhm.
Some of the most spiritual people I know consider themselves not to be religious. Right?
Mm.
So it is a way for us to express ourselves. And today it's all about joy. And so I'm going to put the spotlight on you for a second, and I'm going to read a little bit about you. So while I do that, here we go. Becky believes in the healing powers of expressive arts and stories. She's a creativity and joy activist. Now, isn't that cool? A creativity and joy activist. And so she enjoys creating anything that activates creativity while exploring personal narratives and the intersections of gifts. In other words, our individual talents, abilities, curiosities, all about living life with purpose. And so through media outreach and play shops designed to animate creativity and joyful play, she helps support people in the exploration of how they can bring their gifts into their lives. So she's doing a lot. And she just tell us a little bit about these past few days, what you've been doing, because it's pretty
Yes.
amazing.
So, how I got to here a few months ago, we had a little wide world thing called World Unity Week. And I found myself there not only as a presenter, but also supporting the team. I mean, there's many of us are volunteers, supporting this amazing collective media effort, really, to share and shine lights on each other's work, and bring in the healing information that's also happening as we're witnessing the pain that's happening. There's also people who are holding space for healing and actually doing work towards it, not just talking about it. And so when I was in World Unity Week, I learned about what was coming with Peace Weekend and the incredible hearts and minds of John Raymer and Summer Joy Raymer at the Sign Network and Ben Bowler at Unity Earth, and really hundreds of people came together to collaborate what we've just experienced with the Up Convergence and now this weekend with Peace Weekend. And I knew during World Unity Week that this was the greatest way that I could serve my work in Joy Fuel, because I believe in animating other people's stories and bringing light to them. And I love interviewing people, but I knew that the best way I could serve really the world was to be able to support all of these amazing heart inspired people who are really doing the work that needs to be done towards healing that we don't get to hear about. And so it's been an extraordinary adventure. And right now we're in day 2 of the Global Peace Weekend, the Peace Weekend Global broadcast, which is about 12, 14 hours a day of content that is unifying and uplifting. And it's all different from around the world. And we're streaming it on peaceweekend.org. But it's, my company, Joy Fuel, that's my sacred work, is a mixed media agency dedicated to kindness, creativity, and joy. And for the last few months, I haven't particularly done a lot of work within the name of that, but in my heart, I know that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, where I'm supposed to have been. And doing this work has felt the most important thing that I've ever done, especially because of the pandemic. Right now, we need to hear of the things that are happening that are working towards unity and peace. And unfortunately, unless you're finding it in wonderful programs like yours, Scott, and with Saturday Night Alive, there's a lot of things to feel hopeless about. And so many of us are working so hard to find new ways into people's hearts and minds and into their energy and experience, into their presence, so that we can believe again in the possibility of this world and reconnecting with the earth, reconnecting with each other in ways that honor the diversities that we hold together.
Thank you so much for all that you're doing. It's really, are you finding that since the pandemic, you have a whole new level of energy, like almost like a spiritual or a God thing going on for you? Is that, I mean, that's what I'm experiencing. I'm wondering if you're having a similar experience.
That's a really wonderful question. Yes, I feel like within my immediate community, there's a lot of despair here. I'm on Catawba land in Raleigh, North Carolina, on the East Coast, and of course, there's a lot of despair because there's a lot of things that are broken. There are a lot of roots in our system that have not that are not working, and so we're upheaving. And yet, I'm I have even more gratitude for an illness that I had in my 30s. This is my 50th year. Next week I turn 50.
Wow.
And my mentor and amazing friend and author Gail Burkett says that I'm a baby elder,
Hmm.
and I aspire to become elder, not older. So my 50th year, and in my mid and late 30s, I had an illness for 7 years that was, I say my children are my greatest teacher, and the illness was also a tremendous teacher in my life. I didn't feel it at the time, but I can see, we have the ability to tell our story in so many different ways and to feel our story and to understand. And having this pandemic now, I used to describe this story as really, it was so personal, but now I can see how what I went through, those 7 years of physical suffering and mental things that I went through, actually were were an example of what I'm seeing outside myself in the world now. And knowing what I went through on my journey to reclaiming my joy, that's why I became a joy activist, and reclaiming to align with creativity. That's the other one, and then kindness, self kindness, and otherly kindness. Self kindness being very important, and I also called sacred kindness. I realized that those 7 years were really, yes, it was an intensely personal experience. It was a personal narrative that I explored, and it was inside of me that it happened, and it led me back onto the journey that I am now, as I'm nearly 50 in these years of using media in this different way. And yet, that 7 years is like a capsule now, only it's outside of me and it's everywhere, and it doesn't make sense. And what we're seeing, all of these bipolarities, all of these things that are so confusing and heartbreaking. And what I realized during my illness was I needed to create spaces to honor the emotions that I felt instead of trying to hide them. And I think that's where we are in the world right now with the pandemic. It's not to hurry up and feel happy. It's to actually allow the alchemy, if you will, the unfurling, the great turning, all these amazing teachers that have given us different ways of expressing what's happening right now, the new story, allow it to come through. But we have to feel the pain of what we have done to reconnect with the earth and reconnect with each other. And it's not easy, it hurts. And yet, alongside the pain that we experience, we can have gratitude for the things that we do have, the blessings that really are still right here. The fact we have this internet connection, and the fact that we humans invented this, and now we're using it, we're reinventing how we're going to use it in this way to unify us while we're alone in our homes, but connected to each other through a screen. We can actually, feel that we're here with each other in a sacred space. And so I'm grateful yet again and again and again for this illness that now I can really see the metaphor and hopefully become even better guardian for creativity, kindness, sacred kindness, and joy.
And thank you for sharing all of that. And I appreciate that, although we're talking about joy today, you're really bringing up how important it is to acknowledge all of our emotions, all experiences. And in Love Coach Academy, one of the things that we often say is that all emotions are welcome. All emotions are welcome. And we live in a world, especially in Western culture, that really uh, does not honor all all emotions. There's that well, kind of get on with it, just do it, right? Kind of a, and it's not healthy, and it is important for us to be really present to what is. This being the Sacred Sunday show, something I've observed as an elder now, who's been around the block and been around the world, and I've had the good fortune to spend a lot of time with a lot of famous spiritual teachers. And I want to report that I've never met anybody that's enlightened all the time. Um, I've met people that are extremely high conscious, extremely extraordinary, amazing. But what's true is they're not in this like constant state of enlightenment, but they're in a more consistent state of presence to what is. A lot of people, including my wife who passed away, she was always wanting to be enlightened. She had the fantasy of it, right? And what is, I think, more achievable and more accurate is absolute presence to what is without the need to change it or judge it. And so when we can be fully present to what is, we're actually having an enlightened moment. Because sometimes we're fully present to joy, and sometimes we're fully present to sorrow and to suffering. And this COVID worldwide event, it's a big time out. It's like, however you want to see it, I like to see it as Mother Earth saying, okay, everybody, time out. And a lot of our distractions have been taken away. Movies, concerts, festivals, bars, clubs, restaurants, sporting events. A lot of those things aren't happening right now. More time at home, and hopefully more time in reflection, really looking at, okay, what really matters in my life? What's working in my life? What's not working in my life? Being more present to what is. And last thing I'll just say, I don't think it's a coincidence that so much racial and social injustice has come up, because it's something that, as privileged white people, yeah, oh my God, that's terrible. Another Black person was killed. Isn't that a bummer? But now it's like, really like, no, we can't just sweep it under the carpet anymore. We have got to be active in changing things. And so thank you for just talking about the power of presence and your own journey of coming into that place.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance, because here's the big question of the day for us, in this time of challenge and chaos, how do we find that balance of creating joy in our life without it being a spiritual bypass, without it being an avoidance of the very real pain and suffering that's going on? How do we do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the illness and life continues to teach me that we have to honor our emotions when we're having them. Um, the reason why I believe my body completely broke down was because I was just trying to be happy all the time. and trying to do everything for everyone that everybody said that, I was good at. Instead of listening to my heart, I was living in my head. And I think there's a lot of things that we can do from our head that are really important in the world. But when we can connect our head and our hearts, and listen to our hearts, listen to what our hearts tell us to do, because I was disconnected and really pushing as hard as I could in my logical mind to create things and do things and get things done. I was, still, very prolific in the work that I did, but it was not grounded or not floated in my heart. And for that, I had all of these problems in my body. And there are other things that I discovered during the illness. There was a few months where I was bedridden, where I had fibromyalgia, and there's like so many different things that I was diagnosed with, and I still don't quite know what it triggered it, and yet when I read this amazing book. These people can ask the question, what's the book that changed your life? Well, I've been grateful that there have been many, many books, but the one on my healing journey that really helped me to shift, even though it's not particularly spiritual book, but it made me recognize the power of my thoughts and not expressing my emotions and how it had created dis-ease in my body, was the work of John Sarno and the Divided Mind and his book Healing Back Pain. When I started to look at all of the pain syndromes and the different problems that I had in my body through a filter of, how could that be an unexpressed emotion? How could that be, if I was having, flares in my wrist, how is that something to do with how I am not aligned with my heart? And that wasn't a question in the book. That was just the question that the book kind of beckoned in me. And when I started recognizing patterns, that I would get a migraine when I was about to go and do something, hold a meeting with a group of people that I actually didn't want want to be in that role, I, um, I started changing my actions and started aligning again with what my heart was telling me, even though it upset a lot of people, because people had expected me to be a certain way, because I'd been that way for, all my life. And now suddenly I really started to take have a real awareness for where I was placing my presence and my energy. And then on the course of wanting to reconnect with or have an animation of creativity, I started to play and color and do things with my children, that really helped me. So I think how we honor our 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 emotions in the moment can lead us into a place of joy, because we've expressed the feeling that we didn't want to have. A lot of times you watch the news, and if you realize that, I mean, I do get news, but I cannot watch it regularly, because I just cry. I feel so much for people that I don't know. And so I know that I honor what they're doing in the work that I'm doing, or what they're experiencing in the work that I'm doing, as I am committed to finding ways to animate more healing solutions. And I know that that's all I can do, is to shape the actions that I take towards healing for others. And as a communicator, if we've said that that is a gift that I have, that I'm honoring the gifts that I have and bringing them forth towards the things that cause me great pain. And so that, I think, if we look at the gifts that we potentially have, and if you don't know what your gifts are, it's okay, because just starting in the place of saying, I wonder what my gifts are, that's where I started. I wonder what they'd be. And I made this list and discovered, oh, wow, the world thinks, I'm really good at public relations and marketing. I'm really good with messages. And, I had this list of what other people said that were my gifts. And then I started thinking, well, I love to sing, and I did study music, but I haven't been singing, and that could potentially be a gift. And I made these lists of what everyone else saw and lists of what I felt could potentially be things. And for the things that I didn't know were my gifts, I wrote them down anyway, and I called them my curiosities. What are my curiosities and my wonders? And so for those among us who think, well, I don't even know what my gifts are, and also for those of you who say, well, I'm too old to figure out what my gifts are, that's not true. That's not true. You could find your gifts. Just start following the whiffs of wonder and the whiffs of curiosity, and lean in and explore. Like if you wanted to do an online painting workshop and you haven't painted since you were 15 or something, do it. Give yourself permission and lean in and try to explore those gifts, because I think when we are animating our gifts while we're experiencing the pain and the reality of the things that are happening in the world, that to me is such an incredible inner journey that expresses outwards and really contributes more healing, I think, more healing energy to the world.
Mm. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, I appreciate how you are kind of bringing in your own personal experience of it all. And I love that the singing part. Um, did you have to overcome any kind of self-judgment or like, in exploring that or exploring any of your curiosities, as you like to call it? Was there any gremlins inside your brain poking at you that you had to kind of get past?
There were, and there still are, right? Gosh, I just don't believe her, that voice that says, I don't believe her anymore, that
Mm-hmm.
says you're not good enough, or the one that's still, I probably will work on the rest of my life, is dim your light because you want other people's light to shine brighter. And I don't believe that in my heart, but in our culture we have this fear of being full of oneself, right? You don't want to appear full of oneself. And I mentioned a few minutes ago my amazing mentor, Gail Burkett. She once said to me, I said something to her about, well, I want to do this show, and I want to, do this thing, but I don't want to appear full of myself, because and she said, well, wait a second, I have an assignment for you. I want you to write pages and pages about how very full of yourself you are, Becky. And I thought that was very amusing. So I got off the phone. She was being sarcastic, but she gave me the assignment, which I took to heart. And then all of a sudden I found myself writing pages about actually how very full of myself I am. And I realized that I am not too full of myself, that I cannot welcome another person's idea into my being. I still have, I'm not a closed circle. I'm this open fullness of myself that still welcomes the world into my experience and welcomes other people in, and I'm not I'm very aware of my ego, and of course there are times I come from my ego, and yet Gail helped me to recognize that to come from a place of power is not coming necessarily from a place of ego. And so if I allow myself to feel the fullness of my being, and if each of us do, I actually made a t-shirt that said full of herself, and sometimes I wear it and once you wear a t-shirt that says full of herself and you're grocery shopping, and now with a mask, you have to own it, girlfriend, boyfriend, them friend. You have to own it, right? You have to own that and it's okay. Be full of yourself, but not so full of yourself that you're blocked off from becoming more of yourself.
That's beautiful.
It's not like blocking. So yeah.
A wonderful. I love that. And again, it's always wonderful to meet somebody new and hear new words and descriptions of something else, that a way that I say it. And the way that I like to say that is that there's room enough in our big heart for it all. There's enough room for our ego, and there's enough room for other people's opinions, perspectives, that are true friends, that are people that we want to bring into our heart. Now, discernment is important, obviously, but for our real friends, our family, our loved ones, there's always enough room in our big heart for all of that. I want to acknowledge that we've got a lot of my favorite people watching in my watch party, and we are going to open it up and bring in a couple of you to share with us. So if you want to come into the Zoom room, because you got to come to the Zoom room for us to bring you in, Isabelita, Deborah Haviland, Jay Mayer, anybody who's part of Love Coach Academy, come on into the Zoom room, and you can find the Zoom room at on my post. If you go to my profile page, I've got the Zoom room listed there. Um, and I think I do. If not, I'll repost it. Or I can actually read the number. I'll grab it and read it while Joy is talking next.
Mm.
But come join us, and we'll talk a little bit about joy, and we'll talk a little bit about creativity, because that you're a creativity and joy activist. Tell us about that while I
Yes.
go grab the number.
Yes. Well, that goes back to the gremlins, actually. So the creativity activist. So creativity was one of the gateways that through the 7-year journey through being ill and reclaiming my joy, creativity became this way of expressing myself with my kids. And I went on to hold spaces for women to reanimate their creativity, and recognized that when I was 17 years old, I was in an art class in high school. I'm originally from England, just so you know, for people wondering, what's your accent? It's a very Earth accent. I'm originally born in England, in Gloucestershire, in the Forest of Dean, raised in Rochester, New York, in Webster, and moved now living here in North Carolina. So very global heart here. But my teacher, I asked him his opinion about this painting that I had drawn, that I think I still have. I have to find it because I talk about this painting sometimes, of all of these rainbow colored elephants. Like, it was a really imaginative painting. And I was 17 years old, and everybody else in my class, bless them, they were not painting rainbow colored elephants. um, and I asked him his opinion, and he gave it to me. And he told me that my perspective was not good, and he used all of these, really important art terms. If you're, studying art, and you want to learn about the fundamentals of art. So he gave me all of this feedback that I asked for, and I just realized, wow, I'm not an artist at that time. And although musically I was still singing, and I continued to sing, and minored actually in opera in college, went on to sing with the North Carolina Master Chorale, which is this amazing group in North Carolina that I'm still part of, that we're doing virtually now. But still heard the voices of inferiority and just not good enough. So the creativity activism was born of just, how do I make something and half finish it and be okay with not completing it, or come back to it later and not really like it? How do I make art that I don't like? So then I love to play with words, started to think about, how do we unleash our inner heartist, and, the capital ART. And I love it because other people around the world are doing this too, with the capital ART, heartist, and creating heart instead of just art. And then supporting women. And then my own daughters said, when do we get to come to these play shops that you're holding? So started working in a company called Creative Girl that we had for a few years, supporting middle school aged girls in their creative exploration and their creative journeys. And so, yeah, that's creativity activism. I think we all could be, because we right now need creative new solutions, and we all have things, we all acknowledge things that could be different in a certain way. We need to find the courage to experiment with what that new thing might be, if it's in our own life. And for me, the experimentation, when back then, was about animating my creativity. And how do I do this even though I'm so judgy on myself and I'm so harsh on myself? And what would happen if I actually just forgave myself all these imperfections, these seeming imperfections, and just created for the joy of it, and be okay with not liking what I made? And the funny thing is, I go back to something I make, months later, and that I didn't like, and I'm like, oh, huh, that's not really that bad.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to riff on a couple of things, and then we're going to bring some friends
Yeah,
into the
great,
room.
awesome.
I want to talk about two things. We had not talked about the gremlins in her brain before, but I am aware that that's pretty common for most of us. Most of us do have voices inside of us that stop us from creative expression, that stop us from following our joy, that stop us in many ways. And I really like to identify those as gremlins. If you think about a gremlin is kind of this nasty little critter that pokes at you, right? And it's kind of obnoxious. And those voices are obnoxious and they poke at us. And sometimes the voices are, there are usually variations of you shouldn't do this, you can't do that, or you're no good, or you're not good at that. It's those are usually the voices. And most of those voices came when authority figures, usually when we were young, told us something. You're not good at math. You can't throw a baseball. You throw like a girl. Whatever it may be, that some snotty-nosed little kid or authority figure or even a teacher or a parent said to us that lodged in our brain and then becomes our perception of ourselves or our perception of a part of ourself or something that we may be weak at. And so it's really important to identify what your gremlins are and cast them out. And that's where, working with a coach, working with, one of the coaches from Love Coach Academy can help you with that. But we all have those gremlins poking at us. The other thing I want to say is I just want to talk about the power of imagination. I'm a big fan of Albert Einstein, and so many of his quotes revolve around imagination, and that imagination is the true measure of intelligence. And so now in this time, let's be imaginative. Let's really allow our imaginations to open up. So those are my two little thoughts. And I'm going to go back to Becky, and I'm also going to bring in Jay and Deborah, who we'll hear from in a moment. There he is. There's Jay. There's Deborah. Welcome. And love to just have each of you offer an opening thought, just an opening thought, and then we'll make it a bit of a discussion about joy, how you create joy in your life. And Jay, if you can get a little more light, you're a little bit darker than usual. So we'll go to Deborah first because she's well lit. But you need to unmute yourself, Deborah.
Deborah's well lit.
Yeah, she's
Hello,
definitely
Deborah.
well lit.
Yay, thank you. Oh, I was having to turn off the other watch party to make sure it didn't have two sounds. I just want to say it's so wonderful. First of all, I'm always grateful for Scott and all this amazing platform he's created where we all get to connect, because I've heard people say, oh, I'm so lonely. I don't have my people around, or I don't have places to go, as you said, Scott. And I feel so lucky and blessed that I get to come here so often, as a love coach. So, Scott, what was your question? I'd like to address it directly.
Joy. What's one specific way you create more joy in your life, even during challenging times?
Okay.
So, a challenge is up in your life and it's real. How do you address it and how do you bring joy in?
Thank you. There's actually two that go together, but so I love moving, and so one is dance, and I join my colleague Marianne Carew, who has Dance Alive online, and often I'll do her Inner Rhythms on Tuesday night and dance and Ride the Wave on Wednesday. But I've always just found music and dancing. Also going out on adventures. Around here, luckily, we can do that a little bit more in Florida. And then I teach water aerobics, and we're playing oldies but goldies. So it's all those love songs, that some of us grew up with. You look a little younger, Becky, but probably just a lot of the Beatles and just those happy songs that we heard in the 70s.
Beautiful.
I'm not that young. Thank goodness I'm not that young. Beatles, that's my breakfast.
Wonderful. You look beautiful. And I've really loved everything you've said. And then I'll be quiet because I'm a joy activist too. And,
Yay!
I just love that. And I joy creativity being. And I was conceived right around London, and my name, Deborah Stewart Haviland, comes from England. And so I feel that camaraderie.
Wonderful, Deborah. It's so wonderful to meet you.
All right. And Jay. Hello, Jay. Welcome. Good to see you. Thank you for getting the light back on so you're now well lit. You're lit up. How do you create more joy in your life? And again, when maybe there's a challenge going on in your world, there's a challenge in your life, how do you create more joy?
Well, as you were saying, create more joy. Like joy, it should be a natural thing. We should just naturally be in joy all the time. And if we're not, the gremlins, somehow we've created gremlins to take the place of joy.
Mm.
So I learned, through my gremlins, how to create joy. I invented a system called light touch, which basically sends requests, into the invisible realms where the indwelling spirit resides. And the spirit is very attuned to touch. Touch created us. So touch, there is magical powers with touch. And with light touch, you can program those angels. Like the gremlins are going to be there until something changes. They don't just go away and get old and get bored. They're programmed, just like your hard drive. It's going to run the program. So we have to have a new, better program. And love is the only way, to really change those gremlins around, make them into allies. So light touch, it's just a way to ask. Jesus says to ask, to pray without ceasing. That's what, it says in all the scriptures, really, is to keep praying and asking. So light touch is just an asking for those gremlins to become friends, asking for higher love to encapsulate our thinking so that, our futures, every time you do light touch, you're sending a blessing into the future. That's the way I look at it. And the future is now. So I'm always walking into the future. This is my future. And I just blessed it a second ago. So, that's what I love about light touch. It's the simplest, easiest way to meditate. And you meditate on joy. You go, thank you for joy. And you can feel it. It tingles. Ask any baby about tingling when you run his hand. Oh, they go, ooh, and they love it. And so it's magical, powerful.
I always enjoy your imitation of a baby getting tickled. Tickles me. Becky, what are some of your thoughts? Anything you want to riff on as
Wow. Well, when Jay said, I think you said higher love, I instantly thought, bring me a higher love. Yeah. You remember that song? Bring me a higher love. I love that. The light touch. It's like the angels, the touch of the angels too. Is so beautiful. Beautiful, Jay. Thank you.
yeah, it's a reminder that again, we can make anything sacred just by seeing the divinity in it or doing it with love. We talked about the Beatles, and I think like all of us, I'm a big Beatles fan. But I wish that they'd done one thing differently. I wish that instead of all you need is love, it had been always do it with love.
Mm-hmm.
Because all you need is love actually sets up kind of a false idea. We do need more than love. We need tools. We do need some practical things. But the key is to do everything with love, to be of service with love, to do your job with love, to do your taxes with love, to take the trash out with love, right? So, if I ever meet Paul, I could say, hey, Paul, can you redo it? Is do it all with love? That's a fantasy. Deborah.
Thank you. Yes, I was just thinking along the subject that everybody's mentioned about gremlins. So that's why I love being a love coach, because the tools that we've explored here really do help people go down deep into seeing what's in the way. If we have a voice that said, I'm not enough, or I can't do it, or I can't sing, or something. And so I love working with my clients, and like Scott just said, empowering them into exploring, what really brings you fulfillment? What does bring you joy? In my work, I do a lot of vision questing with people so that they align with their real soul, true nature, and purpose. Because when we are doing what our calling is, like I see everyone here right now, I mean, we're really called to our work. We feel deep. So I feel so much fulfillment when I get to work with clients. And when I get to help somebody, that brings me joy. It really does.
Yeah, my mentor, Marshall Rosenberg, one of his great quotes was, "The greatest joy in life is contributing to the well-being of another." You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful quote, and it's a truth. Um, one thing I also want to mention that can get in the way of joy is if our pain hasn't been acknowledged. And I see this a lot with clients. When I'm working with a couple or a family, and things begin to shift, and there's some laughter, and maybe laughter's beginning, but there's one person who just can't laugh. It's because there's a pain they're carrying that in their world hasn't been acknowledged enough. Um, and so we have to remember that. Again, not to enable victim thinking or victim consciousness, but to recognize that, everybody needs a certain amount of empathy for their hardship and their challenges before they can lighten up enough to embrace joy. Right? So that's just a reminder. Let's hear from, I think we're going to go in a round robin. Let's hear from Jay, then Becky, then we'll go back to Deborah.
Well, when we do light touch on different shows, we always bless everyone here, which, the beauty of light touch is blessing others, because, Jesus, I don't disbelieve Jesus. I just, I'm not like a Christian. I believe in truth, and so, the truth is, do unto others and give and you will receive. That sounds like truth to me. So, light touch is designed to bless others. You bless everyone that comes into your mind. Bless our ancestors. Bless our health. Bless other people's healths. You see someone struggling with their finances. We bless other people. We bless all of our finances. So the I, me, and my stigma is really difficult, to move past the gremlins. I think Deborah was mentioning service. That's one way to slay the gremlins really quickly, is to work for other people. Forget about yourself, forget about your problems, and help somebody else with their problems. So I've learned a lot about that, because through all the many years of discovery, that it's really about service, and that's when everything turns around. All the saints, all the masters, they were all the highest evolved beings are servants. So, I thank you for being a vessel for which light touch can help people, anyone listening, that we all need help. Everyone does. We all need miracles every day. Without the miracle of, money coming and accounts appearing and the right divine appointments, life is not as meaningful. So I'm very thankful for, to be in alignment with, being able to get out of my own way.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Becky is our special guest. I'm going to put the spotlight on you for a moment.
Well, I love what Jay just said, though, about really, you were talking about kindness, and like, how do we sacred kindness to me is taking care of myself, that I can express kindness to others. And during the illness that I experienced, I had to really understand how I could be kind to myself, because our culture says if you take care of yourself, it's like selfish. Especially, I mean, I'm a mother of 3 children, and if I'm doing things that are all about my work or all about me, then I'm not being a good mother, because it should be all about them. And then of course my life is dedicated and devoted to my children. But how do we find, I don't know if there is a balance, but how do we find the flow around blessing others with our presence and kindness and taking care of ourselves? And I remember in the beginning part of when I started to kind of turn a corner in the illness, I didn't realize it at the time. I wanted to make cookies. I thought if I could make cookies for myself, I'll make them for somebody else, and I'll try and deliver them. And instead of beating myself up if I wasn't able to deliver them to somebody, I would put them in the freezer, and I'd say, well, I'll try and get them there next week. And I'd give myself a break, instead of, oh, there you go again. You said you were going to, try and do this thing for somebody else, and now you can't do it. I gave myself a break said, it's okay, take care of yourself, sister, and be kind to yourself, and it's okay. And then if you do deliver it, great, but if you don't, then your children have cookies again in 2 weeks. So, but how can we have kindness for ourselves and not be so critical with those gremlins that we're talking about, Scott? You know, how can we have sacred kindness for ourselves first, and then when we have that, when we show up for other people and we bless other people, we're coming from an authentic place. It feels to me that just feels so genuine and deep.
You know, there's a wonderful phrase: self-love is not selfish.
Right.
And it really is so important for us to all practice self-love. In fact, one of my favorite Love Coach Academy shows is called the Self-Love Show. It's two gals, Trish and Dawn, every Thursday morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, and they do the Self-Love Show. And it's just all about self-love practices. And it is really important for us, because the more we fill up our well, then the more it can overflow we have to give to others. And as a mother of three children, it probably took a while for you to learn that, because usually mothers are so busy taking care of their children. It takes a while to learn that you've got to keep yourself replenished and full, so you have enough to give to other people wanting from you.
It's true, and I still am. So my daughters are now collegiates. My eldest daughter, Abby, we spell her name Abby for Abbey Road for the Beatles.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Abigail, she is a sophomore in university, and my younger daughter, Emma, she is a freshman at university from home now. And they're young women. And that new role of, you know, I still am loving and nurturing and doing things for them, but have hopefully raised them in a way that they'll be able to take care of their own sacred kindness and you know, caring for them. And so, and then I have my son, Colin, who's 11, and he's home, and sometimes he's on the Joy Fuel Kindcast. He does he's my announcer. He introduces the show sometimes. It's great. But yeah, how in the evolution of our relationships with people, whether it's mothering or fathering or friending, how that changes, you know, throughout our lives, and how do we recognize those changes in a way that honor kindness and our own kindness and kindness to others.
Thank you so much, Becky. And appreciating all the comments coming in. And Marco, you're absolutely welcome to come on into our Zoom room. So come on back in if you want. All right, let's do one more round, and then we'll kind of begin to wind down. Deborah, final thoughts about joy.
Oh my gosh. You know, so much was just said that's so rich and so deep. I just love this. I love when Jay echoed about service, and I was thinking of Ram Dass, who recently went to the other side, you know, with him saying love, serve, remember. And I'm thinking, you know, so many paths. And I have a show called Universal Heart Wisdom, and I'm really about how do we create more unity? How do we find ways to understand each other's diversity and welcome it? And yet there are common threads of truth through everything, like the golden rule, like kindness. You know, so love, serve, remember reminds me of what my Dr. Sufi teacher said. There are three main things on the path, really. Purification. It's like purifying out those gremlins, purifying out toxins, purifying out if we've been unkind, you know, and then how can I be more kind, or how can I say that in a better way? How can I avoid triggers? You know, we have a lot of tools with the Love Coach Academy about offering empathy and compassion and avoiding the words that we know would trigger that person, finding a kinder way to bring it in, and daily practices. So even having daily practices of joy. I have a friend who teaches laughter yoga. So when joy is deep and authentic and is not covering up something that has to be healed, but rather we're addressing what needs to be healed and then bringing in the joy. I loved when you said sacred kindness. So there's a great bumper sticker doing random acts of kindness. And then what you said, Scott, when there's a group or a family structure and noticing a lot of people are ready to move on, but there's one person still that really hasn't cleared their pain, or they feel like they haven't been heard. Just having that kindness to empathize, like somebody in this room still really needs to be brought forward, like no child left behind.
Right.
So there's so many ways that we really want to offer love, kindness, merged with joy here.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. And yes, Deborah has a show, Your Love Coach Academy, and it's on every Thursday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 6 o'clock Eastern.
Correct.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome, Marco. We'll come on into you in a moment. Nice to be with us. Welcome. Jay, what's your kind of final thought today about joy and bringing joy into our world?
Well, just recently, I've been exploring the angels more. I've always been attracted to them, but not just so much like some biblical interpretation of angels, but more like, there's invisible forces that can help us, and they exist. And people go, well, you can't see it, but you look at the oceans, you can't see what's going on in the ocean. It's full of life. It's full of forests and landscapes and all kinds of, species living there and thriving. So I believe that the invisible forces can be connected with. And, through light touch discovery, I realize that it enhances our experience of the angels. And, the angels are not there usually unless we call them. So if we can learn to call in a tone that they recognize it, like light touch, that little tingle in their world is like a little bell. It goes like ding, like it's really clear and it's really beautiful. And so, light touches actually has its own strand of angels, band of angels that are attuned to the frequency. And maybe all angels are. So you can call on, Sandalphon or Gabriel, and when you call on angels every day, they get closer. Every time I call on an angel now, I can actually feel a presence. So for people that want to know about angels and having them be real, call on them every day, to a little light touch and just go, angels, thank you for untying this invisible knot in your relationship. That's all it is they're just knots. And the angels, they can come in there and sometimes they're beings, invisible negative forces that angels are very skillful at, dividing the darkness and, letting it evolve more gracefully.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much. And people can learn more about Light Touch by either going to lovecoachacademy.com, filling out our survey, or going to light-touch at me. What is it again?
Yeah, light-touch.me.
All right. I'm going to riff on something he said for a moment and give a little bit of an education about angels. You mentioned the angel Gabriel. Well, in fact, if you read in the original Aramaic versions of the Bible, it was Gabriel, feminine. But then when the male patriarchy took over the church, they made it from the feminine Gabriel to Gabriel. Now, as fate would turn it out, my wife's birth name was Gabrielle. And Gabrielle actually means messenger of God. And so she was, very proud of that. So now she passed away 8 years ago, and she certainly is one of my guardian angels. I think a guardian angel for many of us. So I definitely have a certain strong reference. So I just encourage you, Jay, or anybody, when we're thinking of the angel Gabriel, let's go back to what it really was, which was the angel Gabriel. And let's reestablish that feminine connection that got lost in the patriarchy.
Oh. Scott, that's so beautiful. And I just want to honor your wife's presence here. I like feel her when you were talking about her, and just wow, how beautiful. And you're right that to feel her as your guardian angel, that she's there. It's so beautiful.
I'll dovetail that for a minute into what we talked about before with the imagination, because after she died, I had a series of experiences. And, I would really imagine her. I'd imagine what she was saying to me. I'd imagine her in the room with me. And I had to, and the gremlins inside would be poking at, well, you're just making that up. Well, of course you're going to pretend. Well, you're just pretending. You want to believe, all those gremlin thoughts. And it has been a real challenge to allow myself to just have the imagining that she is here and what she would be saying in the higher perspective. So there's an example of where I've had to work with the imagination and the gremlin stopping me from that
Yes.
imagination
And,
connection.
and that, can I just say one other thing, like about when we're processing the grief of the loss of a loved one, and that time that we're transforming our own relationship with our beloved person who was here with us in person and now is with us in spirit, there is that time where you can allow yourself to be open to have a new relationship with the person that you've lost, and you're not crazy, and and it is it's a positive thing if it feels good to you to have that. And so I'm so grateful that you spoke that truth, Scott, because so many people stop themselves from having a continued relationship with their beloved because of the cultural conditioning that makes people feel that there's something wrong with that connection. And so thank you for speaking that and honoring that. And it really is a time of, it's a sacred time after you lose someone, always afterwards, and that invitation that they can be there with you and support you is such a gift, and a testament to the love that you had for your beloved who's now gone, that you should, it's okay to continue that relationship with them and be open to it being that person, that energy, that spirit, and that connection that you had, that you can still feel that for the rest of your life despite the physical presence or the physical absence of your beloved in your life.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you. We're almost at our hour, and I want to give Marco a moment. Hello, Marco. Thank you for your patience, and thanks for being with us.
Scott, Becky,
Marco's a
Jay, Deborah.
you're part of part of the Harmonic Convergence Conversation Group. Marco, what would you like to share about today's topic?
Oh, well, I've literally found, new joy in just meeting people on Zoom, and it's just, Becky talks about her illness and how it, you found the silver linings, and I'm finding the silver linings in COVID, because without COVID, so many of us would not have found each other now through Zoom, and it is truly been joyful for me, all the people I've met, and we're trying to do as many good things as we can, and there's so many groups right now all trying to make their good footprints in the sand, and we're at the conversation.cc. We're welcoming everybody to come join, share, leave your links, have a breakout room if you want on any subject, and share the joy of companionship and nurturing that is coming about in this awful time of COVID. There is joy to be found and joy to be made.
Beautiful. Marco, thank you so much. And what Marco's referencing, for anybody watching, there's a wonderful ongoing service called, is it theconversation.cc? And that's where you can come in and speak with other friends. And what time is it run, Marco? Do you?
Can you hear me now? My connection went out a little bit.
Yeah,
looks like I'm back. Yeah, if you go to the connection, all one word, .cc, there'll be a Zoom link on there, and you can follow that. Right now, we're going about like Tuesdays from noon till about 8, for a specific group called Solution Club. And then Fridays we have a 24-hour block party.
Great.
And starts 7 to 9 p.m. or a.m. Pacific time with food healers, where we discuss our plan to end hunger in the world. And we're not talking pie in the sky. We're talking realistic, doable, actionable things.
Beautiful.
And then there's other segments throughout the day, like the Divine Feminine, the New World for Humanity, and different things. But sometimes we run out of steam a little bit. But we're trying right now. We're aiming for 24/7. We're on from about noon till midnight, pretty reliably right now. Sometimes we're lacking in a host for some period of the day, but we're working on it, and we welcome others to come and host too. If you have a group, so everyone's welcome.
And again, I'm going to actually post it. That's the conversation.cc, the conversation.cc. So it's a great place to go and connect with the people. And thank you, Marco, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Becky, how do people find out a little bit more about you and what you're doing with Up Convergence? What's the
now we have, I said, Peace Weekend, our global broadcast. We also have breakouts in Zoom rooms, and you can get more information by going to peaceweekend.org and checking out the feeds there and checking out the schedule. Today is day 2, and we have later in the day, I think it is at 5 p.m. EDT. All of our times are listed in EDT. You can jump in a Zoom room with us, and we're having a community hour. I think it is 5 p.m. EDT today. Forgive me if I'm saying the wrong time. So many different things that I'm focusing on. So that's peaceweekend.org. And then for the work that I do for Joy Fuel, it's joyfuel.org. And I'm grateful if anybody wants to journey with me there, with us there, as we're growing our mixed media agency dedicated to kindness, creativity, and joy. And when you're there, you can check out some kind casts, I call them, spreading kindness instead of podcast is a kind cast. Broadcast kind cast. Would love to have people there and check out some of the recordings that we've done with amazing people that we've talked with.
Great. All right. And I also want to, since we're doing our links, we're kind of closing. These are all wonderful resources. And so I want to just bring up Jay's resource. And Jay, tell us a little bit more about what people can find when they go to the Light Touch website, which I pulled up on the screen right now.
Well, Light Touch is, we're just kind of coming out right in the center of the pandemic. Light Touch is coming out in the center of the pandemic. We're coming out, to make it available to people. And this is a resource that people need. We need to know how to self-source. We need to know how to, if you need money and you're in a relationship and you can't make your car payment, then we should, use touch. Touch is magical. It created us with our partner. So you can go, thank you for money. Thank you for blessing my partner. You can bless someone else, or bless us. Thank you for blessing us with money and abundance. It's not just money, it's being abundant. So Light Touch is really good for that. And, just instantly, I just want to say the whole concept of foreplay, when you devote that towards creating, first touches, thank you for abundance, if that's what you need. Thank you for love with my partner, and it's very fulfilling. So I know we're running late, but we're going to be having lots and lots of invocations that people can purchase. And there's a bunch of free material there to help people create the lives that they dream of and long for in real time.
Right. And last thing, I want to just remind people that Love Coach Academy offers a lot of different shows, including Deborah's show, Thursdays at 3:00. I want to encourage everybody to go to Love Coach Academy and fill out our free survey. We have a beautiful survey that we've designed that gives us a chance to learn more about you. And the first 10 responses we get, you'll receive a free discovery session with one of our certified love coaches. And this is all our way to kind of provide more support for people. So definitely go to lovecoachacademy.com. When you do that, what will happen, kind of show people real quickly, when you go to lovecoachacademy.com, the very first thing that comes up on our homepage is the survey, and that's where you can fill it out. So definitely that's a wonderful way to get some wonderful support. And again, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for being with us. It's definitely time goes by fast. And for those watching the replay, thank you. Thanks for coming and being part of our team. And if you like what you saw, share it out and take advantage of all these wonderful resources that Becky and Deborah and Jay and Marcos are all providing. There's a lot of wonderful services that we're here to support you all with. Finally, remember that we make anything sacred by seeing it with love, by seeing the divinity in it. We don't need to go to a church or a temple, although we can. That's a wonderful thing to do. But we make life sacred by how we see things. Let's see the divinity in all. Let's do it all with love. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Look forward to seeing you in the future. God bless you. Bye-bye.